The weird, sprawling saga of Warner Brothers Discovery just dropped another major plot twist as Netflix seemingly emerged victorious in the bidding war over the company. This means that Netflix, already one of the biggest entertainment companies in the world, will now control the film and TV rights to franchises like Harry Potter, Game of Thrones, and of course, DC. Batman is now a Netflix character.
I'm Batman.
Provided the acquisition is approved by federal regulators, that is. So this new deal raises many questions about the future of Warner Brothers as a studio and what this means for theatrical distribution, many of which will only be answered in the months and years to come. But for many superhero fans, the biggest question is what this all means for DC Entertainment, a company that has already experienced more than its fair share of turmoil in recent years. So let's explore why the best case scenario for DC right now is simply business as usual.
Riddle me this, riddle me that.
DC's leadership has been nothing if not tumultuous over the past decade. Back in 2016, Warner's ushered in the era of DC films with Geoff Johns and John Berg serving as co-chairman of the division. But after films like Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, and Justice League underperformed, Johns stepped down in favor of Walter Hamada in 2018. Now, despite the success of 2018's Aquaman and 2019's Joker, the DC brand remained on rocky footing, leading Hamada himself to leave the company in 2022. Thus began a brief bloodbath where several parties jockeyed for control of DC's future, including Black Adam star Dwayne Johnson.
How does it feel?
Wrong.
Only in 2023 did things settle down when James Gunn and Peter Safran were announced as the new co-CEOs of the rebranded DC Studios, and the sun finally set officially on the DC Extended Universe.
Glad I didn't miss this.
So am I.
Nor has this behind-the-scenes chaos been limited to DC's film and TV division. The publishing side has also seen some big shakeups in recent years. DC Entertainment president Diane Nelson left the company in 2018. In 2019, DC laid off approximately 3% of its staff, and co-publisher Dan DiDio left the company later that year, cutting short plans for the controversial 5G initiative that would have replaced DC's iconic cast of heroes with a new generation of characters. Currently, DC's publishing division is overseen by President, Publisher, and Chief Creative Officer Jim Lee and Editor-in-Chief Mary Javins. In short, this is a lot of chaos for any one company to endure in such a relatively short span of time. There's been a tangible lack of consistency and direction behind the DC brand for a long time now. Just look at the latter years of the DCEU, with the company afraid to leave behind the foundation established in Zack Snyder's films, but simultaneously failing to build on that foundation in any meaningful way. And all the while, box office returns steadily plummeted.
This world will fall, like all the others.
Meanwhile, DC continued to struggle in other media. 2024's Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League proved that even the mighty Rocksteady can miss with the DC brand. Over on the comics side, while the 5G reboot and its accompanying revamped DC timeline were certainly ambitious, they threatened to undo all the goodwill DC had only recently recaptured through the DC Rebirth initiative. DC was badly in need of a consistent, steady vision by the time Gunn and Safran were hired to right the ship in 2023. And while it's far too early to say whether they've accomplished that goal, early signs are certainly promising. Superman was the box office success DC sorely needed after a truly disastrous 2023 and 2024 film slate. Creature Commandos and Peacemaker have established a strong track record for the DCU on the streaming front. And as for comics, the Lee Javins era of DC Comics has been truly great, most notably giving us the chart-topping Absolute Universe imprint. Things are finally looking up for DC, which is exactly why the chaos and confusion of the Netflix acquisition is an unwelcome development. The very last thing this company needs is another regime change or a fundamental pivot.
You just have to decide what kind of man you want to grow up to be, Clark, because he's going to change the world.
It's going to take some time for Netflix's acquisition of Warner Brothers Discovery to be approved and completed, and there are any number of things that could go wrong along the way. But once all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, Netflix is going to have a massive pile of new IP to play with Which then begs the question, do they continue following Warner's roadmap for these franchises or start fresh? It's hard to imagine Netflix changing course with the Harry Potter and Game of Thrones series. They'll be inheriting a Harry Potter series in the midst of adapting the original novels and an ever-growing slate of Game of Thrones spin-offs. There's no reason to rock those boats, but with DC, there's always a danger that Netflix will want to wipe the slate clean and start a brand new shared universe of films and shows from the ground up for their streaming service. We can only hope the company resists that particular urge after so many years of creative turmoil and leadership shakeups. The very last thing DC needs right now is change. Gunn and Safran need to be left alone to cook. Now, we've only gotten one live-action DCU movie so far in Superman, which will be followed in 2026 by Supergirl and Clayface, and in 2027 by Gunn's Superman sequel, Man of Tomorrow. On the TV front, we've only seen the barest glimpse of 2026's Lanterns and the other shows that will make up this new universe. Clearly, there's a plan in place. Gunn even has a name for it, Chapter 1, Gods and Monsters. But we're still in the very early stages of that plan. As much as things are looking up for DC after a few bad years, we're still very much in the rebuilding stage right now. The Gunn Superman did respectably well at the box office, narrowly beating 2013's Man of Steel domestically, but one might argue that a big-budget Superman reboot by the director of the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy should have performed better.
I look around at us, you know what I see? Losers.
Repairing the damage done to the DC brand is a long-term and ongoing process. Netflix needs to commit to letting that process continue to play out, not tossing everything out and starting over yet again. We just found the ideal live-action Superman in David Corenswet. Don't start that agonizing process all over again. The other question that's being thrown around a lot, will Netflix bring back Zack Snyder's DCEU?
You were sent here for a reason, and even if it takes you the rest of your life, you owe it to yourself to find out what that reason is.
Some DCEU fans might be clinging to the hope that Netflix will pivot all the way back and restore the Snyderverse, given the streamer's past relationship with Snyder. But the actual odds of that happening are probably somewhere between extremely low and a snowball's chance in hell. The DCEU was never consistently successful for WBD, either critically or commercially, giving the streamer very little incentive to revert back to a non-winning formula. Moreover, Netflix seems to have soured on Snyder altogether following the frosty reception of the Rebel Moon movies. Snyder himself seems pretty ambivalent on the possibility of future Rebel Moon movies and has moved on to other projects like The Last Photograph. Again, we just don't see a Snyderverse comeback as a very likely scenario here. And what of DC Comics in all of this? Is DC's publishing division even a blip on Netflix's radar? Will they have any interest in overseeing a comic book publisher or simply license DC's characters out to other companies? Again, DC Comics has been in a very good place these past couple of years, so the ideal scenario is that Netflix stays as hands-off with the division as it has with Mark Millar's Millar World line. Let DC Comics continue to operate as it has these past couple of years, producing good, character-driven stories that can be adapted in other media. If Netflix wants to make waves anywhere with the DC brand, it should be with the games division. While somewhat overshadowed in the initial announcement, it's been confirmed that Netflix will take ownership of WB Games along with everything else. With all the moves Netflix has been making into the interactive game space lately, they may well have big plans for the developers and IP now coming under their umbrella. As it is, WB Games has hardly been making the best use of the DC brand in recent years. Games like 2022's Gotham Knights and the aforementioned Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League were big disappointments. While the much anticipated Wonder Woman game has been canceled after a long and chaotic development cycle. Meanwhile, as much as Gunn and Safran seem to be including the games in their long-term plans for the DC line, that has yet to yield any concrete announcements. So hopefully, having Netflix's resources to bring to bear can only mean better things for DC's future gaming slate. But beyond the games, the best thing that can happen for DC in the midst of this merger is nothing at all. After so many years of shifting leadership and pivots in direction, what DC needs is stability, consistency, and a chance to win back moviegoers still skeptical of the brand. What it doesn't need is a new captain at the helm or yet another reboot. Just trust that Gunn and company know what they're doing, and leave it at that. Let us know what you think about the Netflix purchase of Warner Brothers, and for more on how crazy this deal might end up being, stay right here on IGN.